Is Sega about to be bought by Microsoft? The evidence is extremely interesting, and we have to consider that obviously Microsoft has struggled to really get a foothold in Japan. It's one of the major gaming territories, and despite their best efforts, Microsoft just can't seem to really penetrate that market, making a Sega acquisition make a heck of a lot of sense. But before we get into it, I got to remind you, we have a couple giveaways going on. We just recently hit 50,000 subscribers. If you head down to the description, we have a giveaway for an Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, or Nintendo Switch. The winner for that will be drawn on December 1st. That's right, it's a 2-month giveaway. But don't worry, we have an October giveaway as well going on for 2 copies of Pikmin 3 Deluxe. You can go down in the description to enter that as well. Also, let's see if we can get this video to 700 likes. Man, we get to 700 likes, or I'm just going to punt a baby out a window. All right, let's get into it. We have some interesting information here. I got this on Reset Era because they conveniently gathered it all together, although there's one more thing to look at. So Microsoft buying Sega has been a rumor for a long time, and we obviously know Microsoft recently bought Bethesda, or at least ZeniMax owns Bethesda, so they own Bethesda now. And Microsoft put out there that, this isn't going to be like the last acquisition. Like, Microsoft is looking to buy more studios. Now, how many more, we don't know. Maybe 1, maybe 2. And when you see them buy Bethesda, you got to start wondering, what kind of studios are they looking at? Are we looking at Ubisoft or Activision's? And the big thing here is that to buy Sega, Microsoft has to deal with the fact that it is a publicly traded company, and it's actually a partner company with Sam's and Sega. So they would have to split, Sega away or buy the overarching majority of stock in that company. Now, they can do that. It's called a takeover. Microsoft could do that, but then they'd have to get into the pachinko machines and other things that the Sam side of thing has going on. So I honestly think that what Microsoft would try to do is negotiate a certain percentage of shares to buy Sega's portion out to split the companies apart. That is, if Microsoft was even able to do this, and they could probably do it for less than the $7.5 billion they spent on Bethesda. So it actually would be a cheaper acquisition. But here's the reason why these theories are running rampant now, besides the fact that Microsoft said they're going to be buying more studios. So you go to here, and Xbox tweeted out this clean and simple, still iconic tweet. The Xbox wireless controller is Shock Blue. Is a stunner, optimized for next-gen gameplay. And conveniently, it kind of looks a little bit like Sonic. You got the white on the back, you got the blue on the front. But what's even more interesting is when you take this, this is kind of something we'll get into. But when you take the controller and you actually go into color picker in like a Photoshop or whatever, you'll see that the color blue of the controller is the exact same blue as the official Sega logo. The exact same blue. That's insane. That the blue on the controller that they're releasing is the exact same Sega blue. Like, exactly. Not even one shade difference. Not even a hair off. It is literally the exact same blue. Now, that could be a coincidence. It could be. But then you have things like Sega tweeting out this. Why is this person, head down on the desk, making an X with a box in front of them? Now, it could be nothing. They could just be hinting at a new game coming to Xbox as well. A little tease, happening at Tokyo Game Show. Because the rumor is essentially, it's hit 4chan now. 4chan has a rumor out there now that literally the acquisition of Sega will be announced at Tokyo Game Show. And Sega's, teasing something for Tokyo Game Show. All right. So that's all interesting. Then Sega had to tweet out this. Why is Sonic sitting next to two green drinks? Potentially teasing, Series X, Series S, as you're seeing here. One with the black, one with the white. Now, Sega does these little teases, these little food, Sonic, whatever things like this little image here. It's interesting, but they do teases like this before. They like not teases, but like social media posts with like food objects and their characters. So this isn't unusual. But what makes it interesting is that this tweet came out, back in August, kind of teasing people potentially of an acquisition that had yet to be publicly announced. So it's more so the timing. So you got this August, September stuff going on, Tokyo Game Show. You got Sega putting out these tweets here. This clearly is an X in a box. This clearly is like a green, which is traditional Xbox colors, with the white and the black, which is very interesting. I find that to be kind of convenient. And obviously the Sega Blue. We can't ignore the Sega Blue in the new controller that Microsoft announced. Like, they literally announced this on September 21st. So this just happened. This just happened 2 days ago. People are starting to put it together after Microsoft bought Bethesda. That like, hey man, people are already kind of wondering, is this like, what was this new Xbox wireless controller supposed to be tied to a Sonic game or something that hasn't announced yet? So people were worrying about that, and it's optimized for next gen gameplay. Like, what's happening is Microsoft buying Sega. It would be a huge acquisition, by the way. It's not just about Sonic. Now, I would assume things like Sonic and Mario at the Olympic Games, if Microsoft bought it, would continue. I don't see Microsoft ending that series. Microsoft has a working relationship with Nintendo. So I don't think that they would necessarily take the blue blur away from appearing on Nintendo systems, especially since, whatever it does on Switch is not going to be the same as can be shown on an Xbox Series X or a Series S. But there's more IPs under the Sega umbrella. And this is where it gets interesting. The Total War franchise is owned by Sega. The Total War franchise is one of the best strategy games, period, on PC. I mean, they just had that crossover with Warhammer, and that was an amazing Total War game. Microsoft would get that in their portfolio. That would fit extremely well with Microsoft. Extremely well with what they do in the PC space and what they're doing with Xbox. That IP would fit so well. Like, yeah, Sonic's great. And there's a history of Sonic games on Xbox. Of course, there's a history of Sonic games on every platform. From the old Sega systems to Nintendo, now Nintendo. They weren't on Nintendo for a while, but now Nintendo systems for like the last decade or so. Obviously, PlayStation and Xbox. There's been a history of Sonic games on these platforms and a history of Sega games on everything. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens here. Is Microsoft going to add Sega to their portfolio? Because the obvious reason to do it is not just to get more exclusive games. It's because a lot of Sega's games perform decently well in Japan. Now, it's extremely difficult for an American company to buy out a Japanese company. It is extremely difficult. Japanese companies tend to have a different moral system, a different honor system, where it makes it very difficult. Like, Microsoft could, in theory, buy out Nintendo. Like, Nintendo's got like $11 billion in the bank. That's like less than 10% of what Microsoft has in the bank. And that's not even talking about what Microsoft's worth. Microsoft could buy out Nintendo. They could straight up buy all the shares for Nintendo. They could attempt a hostile takeover. But Nintendo's not stupid. Nintendo wouldn't allow it to happen. Nintendo would buy up enough of their own shares that Nintendo would end up owning a majority of their own company, preventing a buyout, because Nintendo's not stupid. They do these share buyouts all the time to try to increase how much of their own company Nintendo owns to prevent hostile takeovers. So, but Sega and Samsung Sega might not care as much because there's been some struggles at Sega over the years. The Sega games haven't always performed well. Sonic seems to be turning things around, but that's more recent. It'll be interesting to see if this is something that comes true, and we don't have to wait long. Tokyo Game Show is coming up this weekend, guys. Remember, we're going to have the Age of Calamity stuff. You guys know I'm going to be attempting to live stream that. Assuming things line up in my life, I will be attempting to live stream that Age of Calamity news. You know that. We have the Monster Hunter stuff coming as well. We'll see if I live stream that. I got to make sure. I hope there's some English version of these, and I'm not just reacting to Japanese footage and stuff, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I'm just, oh boy, man, I'm rubbing my hands over here in excitement over this potential acquisition. Now, you might say, why would you be excited about this? You weren't, but what about the Bethesda stuff? Like, I think that if Microsoft got this, it would actually be a boon to Sega because they can inject funding into that company. Because I do think Sega needs some more funding that they're not currently getting. Just my personal opinion. Now, one thing that you could worry about with Nintendo is the Bayonetta IP. I would assume that Microsoft would want that Bayonetta IP back, even though Nintendo owns the rights to 2 and 3. It's entirely possible that Microsoft and Nintendo can negotiate something there, because Nintendo, since they own the rights to 2 and 3, Microsoft can't just take those games and republish them. So I do think there would be an agreement worked out where Bayonetta would become just a multi-platform game between Nintendo and Microsoft, which I don't think is a bad thing. Console exclusive games are great, but I think multi-platform games are better for in some regards. There are certain times where exclusives are really, really good because they take better advantage of the hardware. Zelda being an exclusive game, it'd be cool if it was on everything, but it will take better advantage of the given hardware by being exclusive. Same for Sony's stuff, same for Microsoft. So anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Robojets from Nintendo Prime. Let me know what you think about this potential acquisition, and I'll catch you in the next one.